recording. And all right, show's over to you, Eli and Miss Georgia.
Okay. Welcome to the Judging and Award session. My name is Georgia Clark, and I am the Regional Lead Judge Advisor.
And my name is Eli Peacock, and I am a FTC veteran and this year a Georgia First volunteer.
Okay. I just want to say that I have been judging for about 10 years and judge advisor for 5 years. I first got involved in 2007, coaching my son's FLL team, and then we moved up to First Tech Challenge in 2010. In our first year, we advanced to state and won the Think Award, and then the next 3 years, we won the Inspire Award. And this team was called Robugs, so some of you may remember us. So I know Eli has a lot of experience also. So as Kyle said, please use the Q&A to submit your questions. We will take those at the end. Here's a quick agenda of the order that we will be covering things. So I'd like to start by saying that this presentation will explain the judging process and offer some tips that will help your team to stand out to the judges. The judging process is designed to help students develop interview and public speaking skills, which are necessary life skills, so it is important that teams prepare and do their best. The Judged Awards give us the opportunity to recognize teams who embody important values like gracious professionalism, teamwork, creativity, innovation, and the value of the engineering design process. So let's start with the judging process. And the first place to start is read the game manual part 1. There are 2 versions this year. One is for traditional events and one is for remote events. And judging will be moving forward with the remote event, so make sure you read that section. Section 9 in the remote events. It'll give you a little more detail as to how the remote judging will work. And this is the link that will take you straight to the page that has those manuals. And they were updated yesterday with the judging content. So let's see, so there's 4 parts to the judging process. It starts with the team interview with the judges, and then we have evaluation of robot performance. Judges will follow up with additional interviews as needed, and then we evaluate the engineering documentation. The interview with the judges, each team will have a 15-minute fact-finding interview with a panel of 2 to 3 judges. At the start of the interview, students will have 5 minutes to present their presentation to the judges, and this is followed by 10 minutes of questions. Judges will ask about your team, the robot, and your outreach efforts. They would also like to hear about what the team has learned during the season and the experiences that you have gained. The judges' interviews take place before any qualification matches so that the entire team may be interviewed. Teams must know their scheduled time and arrive to the room early, and you will have a scheduled time with the remote judging. Each team should have at least 2 student team members and their robot, but we encourage the entire team to join. Judges love to hear how each person contributed to the team, and teams may not opt out of the judging interviews. So some tips for improving your judging interview. You need to decide ahead of time what each person will talk about and in what order. Prepare and practice a 5-minute presentation. Use good presentation skills. Talk about your team dynamics, your outreach for this season, not previous seasons, only this season. Talk about the strategy for your robot game, how you use the robot design process, and how your robot is different from others. And make sure you use the team judging self-reflection sheet. You can find that sheet at this link, or you can just go to the firstinspires.org website, select First Tech Challenge, and then Game and Season. You'll click on Team Management Resources, and you will see Preparing for Competition. And this is one of the choices. This is what that sheet looks like, and there's a section you can fill out before your presentation, and then you can practice your presentation and fill out some more information. But it forces you to ask questions about things that should be in the presentation, or ways that you should be doing that presentation. So it's very helpful, and we have found that teams who use this sheet do a much better job with their presentation. So we have some judging changes for this year. One is the engineering portfolio, and it is required. We also will have limited judging feedback. This is by request only. And the control award placement has moved higher in the advancement order. So let's look at these closer. The engineering portfolio is required and will be submitted to the judges instead of the engineering notebook. You still need to have your engineering notebook. You will keep a printed copy of the notebook in the team pit area in case judges would like to see more details. The engineering portfolio is a clear and concise summary of the team's engineering notebook, whereas the notebook is a complete documentation of the robot design process, team information, team outreach, and team plans. You can think of the portfolio as the team's resume. The portfolio should inspire the judges to want to see more detail in your engineering notebook. And judging for all awards will start with this engineering portfolio. So remember to refer to the Game Manual Part 1, Section 9 for more details. Formats for the portfolio, you can do handwritten, although this year we don't recommend that. We really recommend that you use the electronic version, and that is because of the remote event judging. Teams will need to create a single file that is shareable, such as a PDF, of their engineering portfolio. For traditional events, teams would print out their portfolio and bring that. Once again, refer to the Game Manual Part 1, Section 9 for more details. And remember, there are 2 versions of the manual. Let's look at the requirements. In order to be considered for any judged award, a team must submit an engineering portfolio. It must not exceed 15 pages of content, and it should highlight the best content from the engineering notebook. The portfolio is a clear and concise summary, like a resume. The team number must appear on the top of the front page. Engineering portfolios will not be considered without this information. Some recommendations. We recommend that a team number is put at the top of every page. It is a good idea to connect the award criteria to specific content in your engineering portfolio. So this could include a summary of the engineering content. It includes robot design process and the CAD and detailed drawings. This could also include a summary of your team information that includes information about the team overall and your outreach activities, and include a summary of the team plan. This could include a business plan, a fundraising plan, a strategic plan, sustainability plan, or a plan for the new development of new skills. And teams can use a self-assessment sheet, which will be coming soon, as a way to be sure that your engineering portfolio provides answers for each of the requirements for these specific awards. So we will keep you updated when that sheet becomes available. So the next new change we have is limited judging feedback. This requires the team to submit a judging feedback request form during their judging session. Instructions for completing this form will be sent out to teams later. I did not see anything about that in the game manual part 1. So as soon as that becomes available, we will send that out to the teams, out to the coaches. This will provide limited feedback and will be given in areas of team presentation content and the engineering portfolio. This form does not allow for open-ended feedback. A rating will be given of not there yet, good, or excellent. And once this is completed, it will be sent back to the team coach after the competition. The control award placement has moved higher in the advancement order. It used to be last on the list, but now it has moved up. So at a competition, when we add in the robot rankings or performance, this is what the advancement order would look like. And this is the one for remote competitions. And this is for traditional competitions. And the list does go longer. I only printed the first part. So now we will move into talking about each individual award. This is just a brief description, and then Eli will go into more detail. So the Inspire Award is the highest honor, and that goes to the team that performed well in all areas. The Think Award is now for the engineering portfolio and engineering notebook. Connect Award is for teams that have connected with professionals in the STEM field. The Collins Aerospace Innovate Award is for innovative robot design. Design Award is for following and documenting the complete engineering design process. The Motivate Award is for teams that have motivated, mentored, and inspired others to join the FIRST community. These teams reached outside of the STEM community. That's one difference between the Connect Award and Motivate. Connect deals with STEM fields, where Motivate, you reach outside of the STEM community. The Control Award, sponsored by ARM, is a sensor-based robot control award. And then remember that every award includes the requirement of GP, which is gracious professionalism. And that is a way of doing things that encourages high-quality work, emphasizes the value of others, and respects individuals in the community. So now I will hand it over to Eli to talk about the awards.
Awesome. Clark, so we'll go ahead and get started on the Control Award. So as mentioned, the focus of the Control Award is going to be on the control systems. This year, you'll be required to have a Control Award submission form. You'll need representative field performance, and as with every award, you'll need to represent it in your documentation. So the the FIRST website has this described in depth. If you check out Appendix D of the game manual, it's already out. It shows exactly what judges expect for each set of content in Control Award submission form, and what kinds of things they're looking for out of some of the best Control Award submissions.
Okay.
So I do have some tips from my past experience, and this one may sound like a given, but use diagrams. There's one diagram that's required, and you need to be able to map out your autonomous on a diagram they give you. But including diagrams for other parts of your autonomous, for other parts of your control systems, can be a really easy way to visualize it. It's a lot easier to summarize your content in a picture than give a 3-paragraph response, because you want to keep your control award documentation thorough, but you want to keep it concise, and you want it to be understood. So it's necessary for documenting your autonomous, but it's really useful in all parts of the control award. So another thing that's really important is to always refer back to your documentation. This year, with the engineering portfolio, you'll need to summarize your best content in 15 pages. But that doesn't mean you can't reference your notebook. That doesn't mean that you can't have more information, more supplemental information that judges can refer to. If judges are really interested, then they may ask to see your notebook. And if you're able to organize your sections and have maybe even a page number that you know that your source information on your control award comes from, then judges can be pointed in the right direction to learn more. So another important tip, once again, it may sound like a given, but if you're interested in going for the control award, include all of the sections that are recommended in Appendix D. Include everything, and make sure that you explain it. It's one thing to just smack code into your control award submission. It's another thing to understand the algorithms you use and to explain them to judges. So another thing is to talk about it. In your team presentation, if you're going for the control award, if you're proud of the control systems you've developed, then talk about them. Be excited. It's really passion that comes through with a lot of these awards, is being passionate about this thing. And if your programmer can speak during your team presentation and talk about what unique things you've done in autonomous, then that goes a long way in control award judging.
And I just have one thing to add here. This year they have said that the control award form should be limited to 2 pages. Mm-hmm. We have seen some teams submit like 10 pages. So don't do that this year. Just keep it to 2 pages that the form exists in.
So that's a great point. You need to have very summarized content. So you can't, utilizing diagrams is even more important in keeping everything in those 2 pages. All right, so next is the Motivate Award. Now, the Motivate Award, as talked about earlier, is spreading and connecting FIRST outside of the STEM community. So what's really important for it is keeping all of that documented. It's talking about it in your presentation. And one thing that I think is a really important tool to utilize, especially if we hopefully return to a more traditional tournament format at the very end of the season, is utilizing your pit display. Your pit is a great source to advertise everything you've done, to put up statistics, to put up numbers from your outreach, and pictures. Pictures are a great tool in getting a glimpse into what you've done. Seeing a picture of your team working with an FLL team or hosting a FIRST event is really sometimes a great way of showing off in just one tiny thing what you've done. Now, a note is it's about spreading FIRST and being a model team. So it's about outreach, and it's about getting people who are not involved in STEM or STEAM or robotics, getting them involved in it. So some tips are, once again, to show it everywhere. Now, in a remote event environment, it's going to look different. But talking about it in your presentation, including it in your engineering portfolio and your engineering notebook, it's all great ways to show off what you've done. As I said myself, I'm going to repeat myself again, but pictures and statistics are extremely important. It is a great way to show off what size of an impact you've made and to see who you've made an impact on. Because it's one thing to say, hey, we impacted 100 people with this robot demo. And it's another thing to see 100 people gathered around a robot and really getting a glimpse of what FIRST is all about. It's very powerful. Now, I know I say this for almost every award, but always refer to your portfolio or your notebook. Include it in everything anytime you talk about it, say, hey, you can find more here. Because if judges hear about this awesome outreach and you don't have a place where they can learn more about it, then they aren't going to have a chance to learn more about it. And that's what is really powerful with your documentation is you can talk and talk and talk, and if that catches the judges, if that interests them, then they can learn even more than whatever short amount of time you can talk about. And once again, be excited. I can say from my experience, I'm not much of a tech guy. I'm not much of a programming or mechanical student. I've always been involved in business and outreach. And I'll say it's been some of the most rewarding things in FIRST for me. And I myself get a little excited talking about outreach. And that's what's important. Judges want to hear how excited you are about what you've done. They don't want to hear you go on and on of there were 10 people at this event, there were 20 people at this event. They want to hear, I had a great experience working with this team, and I got to know some lifelong friends. This has been one of the best experiences in robotics this whole year. That's what they want to hear. They want to hear what excites you in outreach.
That's a very good tip, Eli.
Thank you. Now, moving on to the Design Award. Design Award, as you can tell, is all about effective design and your documented design process. So really important, obviously, is documentation and field performance. Now, they want to see your design in action. Judges want to see it hopefully working. But even as the Design Award says, your design element should be what works consistently. Sometimes your robot may not exactly cooperate as a whole, but it's your design elements that need to be effective, that need to be successful. And once again, this is a bit of a tip for later on in the season, but pit display. I think that a lot of the top teams that win the Design Award really excel in is having things shown off in their pit that judges can touch, that judges can see, and are helpful not just for judges, but also for you as a tool to explain things. It's sometimes hard to flip your robot upside down. It's a lot easier to just grab a part and show judges the piece that you're talking about instead of trying to take the robot away in the middle of matches. So a note is the design elements should be rigorously documented. Now, I'm going to talk about this in a second, but it's not just CAD. Judges love to see handwritten things. I know in teams in the past that I've been on, we've sketched out designs just on pieces of paper. And I think that's something really important to include is every part of your design process. Your design process is not always just sitting down and boom, I've CAD'd a part. Sometimes it's talking about it, drawing on a whiteboard, sketching out on a piece of paper. Include that. Judges want to see that. That is your design process right there. That's what it's all about. Now, some tips. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but showing off a spare. Having your part is, now it's great for actual competition in case, part of your robot breaks and you need to replace it. Spares are always important. I can speak from experience on that, of parts breaking and needing to replace them. But it's also great for judges. You can show off this part, and it's a lot easier to say, okay, this is where the game element comes in, and this is how it comes out. This is how our intake system works. It's a lot easier to show it in the actual part than, grabbing your robot and maybe in the middle of matches all day, having to take the robot away from the rest of your team to show it off. Now, displaying the CAD. That's, once again, a later on tip, but I think it's a great thing for pit displays is to put up your CAD. I know in teams in the past, I've seen some of my favorite things to see are full CAD models of their robot printed out. Not every team can do this, but I'll say it's a great thing to reach out and see if your engineering teacher or if any teams in your area have the ability to print on a large sheet of paper, and you can print a full CAD of your robot printed out on a sheet of paper for judges to see, for judges to check out. Now, another key thing with the Design Award is showing off how you've iterated. That's really what it's all about, showing your design process, showing how things have evolved from step one to the very end. Now, that can be through your documentation, showing your initial prototypes, and then showing how it's evolved and changed and been added to, and how it's become your final product. So that's something that's really important in the Design Award is showing off that evolution, showing off how you've embodied iterative design in your process. Now, just one more note on the spare. It's also a tool that you can be using during this season, even with remote judging. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Ms. Georgia Clark, but I think that judges would like to see a part, even if it's, pulling it up on a Zoom call, showing it off in over even a different kind of judging environment. It's still a great tool to refer to and to be able to explain something whenever maybe you won't have the robot to point to in your judging room.
Are you talking about in the judging interview, or if there was a second interview?
Either or.
Either, yeah. Yes, I think that would be helpful. One note that I wanted to add, maybe you are a rookie team and you have not learned how to use CAD yet. That's okay. Just include a detailed sketch of the design process. You don't have to have CAD. CAD is nice if you know how to use it, but a detailed drawing or sketch is also acceptable.
That's a very good point. Thank you for adding that. All right, so now on to the Collins Aerospace Innovate Award. Now, the focus of the Innovate Award is going to be on creative solution. It's innovative robot design. It's innovating when it comes to robotics. So it's important to have your documentation reflected and to have your field performance reflected. So it's all about an out-of-the-box solution. So and once again, kind of similar to what I mentioned on design, it's your innovative component that is most important to this award. It's hopefully your whole design is innovative, but a lot of teams choose to focus on one unique thing, unique part of the robot. And it's important that that performs well, not necessarily your robot as a whole. I know everybody has bad days with their robot. Some days you may be DCing over and over again, or maybe a whole part of your robot will break off. It's important that your design, your innovative component is working, even if your robot is not exactly cooperating. So while it's not as focused on the design process as the design award is, journaling your design process is still extremely important here. So a tip, hammering it in and hammering the importance a little bit more, is journaling everything. Just like the design award, recording details of what you've done, how you've followed the design process in creating this part or your innovative design in general is really important. Now, once again, similar with design, showing it off is a great way to talk about your robot, to talk about your design, to talk about what you've done. And another thing I touched on just a little bit is focus. Now, it's great to have an amazing robot, but focusing on your most consistent or effective creative piece is a good way of showing off what makes your team special when it comes to the Innovate Award. All right, now moving on to the Connect Award, another outreach award. But the focus of the Connect Award is on connecting with STEM. So connecting with engineers, connecting with mentors in STEM fields. It's about working with people already in the bubble of robotics and STEM. So some key things to remember and include here are your documentation, include it in your presentation, and later on include it in your pit display. So a note is it's only your team's connection within STEM. So Motivate is what's focused on maybe doing demos to people who have never seen, this kind of robot before. But Connect is stuff like doing tours with companies, working with engineers and people who are professionals in STEM fields. Now, some tips are to talk about it. Including it in your team presentation is a great way to talk about who you've connected with, how you've connected with, and really showing it off. You should be proud of this. Proud of all the people you've met and worked with. Now, using virtual is think about it as taking advantage of your limitations. Connections do not have to be in-person mentoring, especially this year. There's a bit more of a focus on, online connection. So this is advice from engineers and STEM professionals all over. This could be a virtual tour of a company. This could be a different kind of connection than what you may normally expect. So don't be afraid to reach out. There are so many people involved in FIRST who are great examples of STEM professionals who would love to connect and work with your team. So don't be afraid to reach out. The worst thing you can get is a no. So also be clear on a plan. So Connect also talks a little about future plans on working with people on a little bit of touching on the future of your team. So they should be discussed as a whole team. Every member should have input on what direction your team takes and the goals you plan on accomplishing. All right, so now on to the Think Award. Now, the Think Award is obviously about documenting the team's journey. So documentation, obviously the focus here, but I also think it's important to talk. I mentioned that a key component is your presentation because it's important to talk about where judges can learn more. So presentation is a bit more general, but in a more general sense, you don't need to talk about your notebook for a minute in the middle of the presentation, but it's important to talk and say, hey, this thing we're talking about is documented, where we talk about it in our engineering portfolio, and if you want to learn even more, we have a whole section in our engineering notebook. So that's why the presentation is mentioned there, but obviously the focus is your documentation. So a note to think about is Think is not just about quantity, it's also about quality. Now, especially this year, judges are going to want to see 15 extremely quality pages with the engineering portfolio. So it won't matter as much this year if you have 3-inch binders. It's going to matter really the quality over the quantity. That's what judges have always preferred, and it's an especially focus this year. So you need to make sure you're noting the most important parts. So something I mentioned a little bit earlier with the design award is include everything. Judges are not just looking for solid typed summaries of things. They're also looking for your thought process, discussions your team has had. Now, an important note here, when I say junk, I mean stuff like even scrap paper, where you've talked about things. One thing that teams that I've seen have taken pictures of whiteboards if they utilize whiteboards in team discussions. But just to note, this should be in your engineering notebook, not your portfolio. You want your portfolio to be more summary and some of the top content from your engineering notebook. Now, the handwritten notes and the sketches, that's all great for your notebook for if the judges want to learn more about something. They can see your thought process in getting to that point in your notebook rather than in your portfolio. Now, a focus for both the portfolio and the notebook is organizing it. The portfolio is what judges are going to see. First and foremost, it's your resume. You want it to be organized. You don't want judges to be confused whenever they're looking at it. Everything should be organized in a logical manner. Now, it was talked about even in yesterday's notebook session about whether or not you need, a table of contents. As answered yesterday, you don't necessarily need a table of contents for your portfolio, but everything should be organized in a logical way so judges they don't have to flip from page 2 to page 10 to find information about one area of their team you're interested in. So numbering, bookmarking, now bookmarking more for the notebook than the portfolio, but all of that is a great tool of organizing and making sure judges have ease of access. That way they're not lost whenever they're looking at your documentation.
That's all good tips, Eli. And I just want to add, one thing that might be important this year is to make sure you include a summary page in the front of your notebook that can kind of be the transition between the portfolio and the notebook. But you're right, all the key information will go in the portfolio, and then the notebook will be for a deeper dive. So, yes, make sure it's organized. You still will want to tab a few pages in the notebook, and that summary should refer to those pages. Remember, judges don't have a lot of time, so when they're looking for something, they want to be able to find it quickly. So that's where that organization will pay off.
All right, so the final award, the biggest award of them all, is going to be the Inspire Award. Now, the focus and what's required is kind of everything. I know that's broad, but it's all aspects of your team, all aspects of the competition is what's considered here. So really, it's everything. Now, one important thing to consider is being strong in every category means, maybe doing well on the field. It means having exceptional outreach. It means having a great notebook. But it also means being a model first team. The teams that win Inspire are the teams that best embody first, that are the most graciously professional, the most dedicated to cooperation, which is, working together and competing with teams at their best and at your best yourself. So it's everything that is considered here, not just, how well you do in certain areas. So some tips here are be your most professional self. Judges don't want to see a show. They don't want to see a facade. They want to see the best, your team at their best, but also you don't need to change your team identity. You don't need to, as I said earlier, you don't need to be robots. You need to be the most professional version, but it doesn't mean that you should, put on a play and behind the scenes be, saying bad things about other teams. You should be graciously professional in all ways, in all, whether or not there's a judge sitting next to you. And also showcase your team members. The Inspire Award is not just about the robot; it's about the team. It's about the team culture. It's the people that are really important here. So highlight your team's strengths and weaknesses. Judges like to see not just succeeding and failing. They like to see praising people whenever they succeed and learning from your mistakes whenever you may not succeed in an area you would like to. So it's about highlighting your team members because all of your team members make some very valuable contributions. And now I'll pass it back to Ms. Georgia Clark to continue on.
Okay, thank you, Eli. That was some very useful information. Okay, so just a summary. Every award has requirements. You need to make sure you know the requirements and show the judges how you met those requirements. And that is something you would do in your team interview. So you will find the details, all the requirements in the Game Manual Part 1, Section 9. Make sure you read that. The engineering portfolio is key for the award requirements. Like I said, that will be required for every award. The control award form must be given to the judges during your interview session, and you will explain the highlights. And as I said, this should be limited to 2 pages. And of course, your team should show respect and GP to everyone they meet at a First Tech Challenge event. This is required for every award, as Eli talked about. We also have 2 video awards. The Promote Award, which a team will submit a 1-minute long PSA, and it has a subject for every season. That changes each season. So if you look in the Game Manual Part 1, you will see the new subject for this year. We also have a Compass Award. This recognizes an adult coach or mentor who has given outstanding guidance and support to a team throughout the year and demonstrates to the team what it means to be a gracious professional. So let's just quickly talk about distribution of awards. Teams can win only 1 judged award except for the Compass and Promote, and only the Inspire 2nd and 3rd place nominees can be recognized twice. With this example that I'm showing, you will see that we have awarded 7 teams and recognized 11 additional worthy teams. So you will see under the Inspire column, the teams across the top in yellow, those are the winners for the awards. So for Inspire, Team 100 was the winner, and then Team 101 was 2nd place, and 105 was 3rd place. And so you will see that 105 was allowed to win the Think Award, and Team 101 won the Connect Award, but you will not see any other duplicates on this chart here. And so what happens is once we decide on the Inspire Award and the 2 finalists, then we remove those teams from all the other categories. And so that way they don't get repeated again. And so you will see over in the design column that we only had 2 teams we recognized. And that is because once we have removed some of the teams as we went through these awards, we ran out of teams for the design award. So that happens sometimes. So the remote judging, which is what we will be planning on for this year, at least for the start of the season, make sure you read the manual. You will have a scheduled judging interview time. It will occur via a video conference, and there will be a 1-week time window. The team must give a live presentation. It cannot be recorded, and it will be limited to 5 minutes, and it will still be followed by a 10-minute judging Q&A. Before the interview, your team coach must upload these materials, and that will be through a link that will be provided to them by the tournament director. So the coach would need to upload the engineering portfolio, and then optional is the control award submission form and the judging feedback request form. For a traditional event, teams will give all 3 of these things to the judges during their team interview. And make sure you use the resources on the FIRST website. There's a lot of good information on there. If you just go to the firstinspires.org, click on First Tech Challenge, and then click on Game and Season Info, and you will see all these links. Under Game Materials is where you will find the game manuals, Part 1 and 2. And under Team Management Resources, you will see Preparing for Competition, and that will include the Team Judging Self-Reflection Sheet. And you will also see instructions for youth team member registration. It will be very important that every team member do the online consent and release form this year. And that is the end of our presentation. So at this time, we welcome your questions.
All right. Well, as Ms. Georgia asked, and from also Eli as well, make sure to please put your comments within our Q&A section. I already answered in the Q&A section. Yes, this presentation will be available outside this presentation currently. We'll be sending out an email within Georgia First in the next couple days, so be on the lookout for that. Also, make sure that as of right now, with the items that they actually posted in the presentation, like the actual presentation itself will also be available, the actual slides. So just make sure if you want, we have another 13 minutes. Oh, there we go. We have another 13 minutes, you can ask your questions there, and I'll get them over to Ms. Georgia and Eli. So we do have a question that just came in. So for remote judging, is the engineering notebook going to be uploaded, or it's not going to be uploaded this time?
Okay, so to start with, you will upload the engineering portfolio, and then it's unsure right now whether we will need the full notebook or not. So we will have to get back to you with more details on that. But it is possible that we will need to see that. So here again, you would probably want to keep that in a PDF format. But we will have more information on this, and we'll get it to you way ahead of time.
Now, I will say that even if you do not, even if we find out you do not have to upload a PDF of your engineering notebook, I would highly recommend it anyway. I know in the past teams I've been on, preparing a PDF of the whole notebook was an easy way of sharing it with other teams and working with other people. So I would recommend it even if we find out that it's not a necessity.
Right. And it may also be possible that we just want you to provide a link, to where we could have access to your notebook. But that does bring up the point that this may not be a good year to do handwritten notebooks because having to scan every page is not going to be fun, and then sometimes it's not readable very well. So, I highly recommend you consider not doing that handwritten notebook this year.
All right. Now another question that was asked is, do they have to bring the engineering portfolio to every meet and tournament that you go to?
Okay, so not to every meet. You will have to bring it to every tournament or competition, yes, because that is what you're going to give to the judges. Not to every meet, though, because the portfolio may not be, you might not create it, until you get close to going to a competition, because remember, that portfolio is a summary of your notebook. So the notebook is what you would carry, maybe to your league meets and, take your notes in your notebook. But no, you won't be taking your portfolio to a league meet, but you definitely will bring it to a tournament.
Mm-hmm. The only time that would ever be different is if your meet organizer tells you that they may have, a mock judging session. That would be the only time I could ever see you needing some kind of engineering portfolio there, even if it's a preliminary draft, because as Ms. Georgia Clark said, it's a summary, and if you're early on in the season, you may not have that full summary ready. So. Right,
and last year we did try to do the practice judging session for every league, and so this year we may have to do those, via conference call. But yes, that's a case where you would have your portfolio for us to take a look at and maybe give you some tips.
All right. So we have another set of questions, a lot of notebook questions. So when it comes to online notebooks, right? What would you recommend for people that may want to pursue doing online notebooks? There's a lot of people that use maybe OneNote, people that use Google Docs, but a lot of times they don't format nicely to actually create the notebook. Are there other tools that might work? Like Eli, I know you have a lot of experience in terms of kind of working with formatting and things like that. What have you found that works best with it?
So I will say that this past year, 2 years ago, I'm getting old. My team was able to be placed for Think at Worlds. So we did prepare an online notebook as well, and we did in the past season the last season that I did FTC, we also prepared an online notebook. And I'll say it's very difficult to try and put everything in one document. That messy. It gets, especially if you have a correction to something, like you need to update a summary, and that may add a page, which means that everything is shifted down. So issues like that can sometimes make it difficult to do it all in a Google Doc or all in a OneNote. So what worked for my team, but I will admit was a bit of a pain, was we put all of our documents together. We printed it out. We organized our notebook in binders, in dividers, and we had page numbers outside of it, so that way shift sections, then it was okay. And also doing page numbering based on sections was really helpful for us because we had programming P2, P3, P4 for programming, and then for outreach we had O1, O2, O3. So this is just a specific example, but that helped because when we needed to change something, we only had to deal with numbering or organizing one section. So what we did is we laid it out all in our notebook, and then we took PDFs of the documents if they were online, or we scanned the document if it was, you know, a handwritten note. We scanned it, and then we just put it together the same way that you'd put, you know, pages in a binder. You take the PDF and you combine it with the PDFs of the other pages in that section. So we had it organized where we had a whole PDF of our outreach section that we could reference and we could use. And we had a PDF of our programming section. So we did it section by section, and we set up PDFs. So that worked for us. It was helpful for editing it, editing sections, but I would, if you do try and do it in a full, again, one document, then to do it, do a document for each section. That way it's a little bit more manageable. That way you're not having to deal with your whole notebook getting changed around because you're editing something in an earlier section. I hope that answered your question. I know I rambled a little bit on my experience. But
no, you're good. I've seen a lot of the stuff that you made before, so that makes sense. So I get what you're saying. All right, awesome. And then before I go to this next question, would you also suggest even maybe if they're using some normal, I would almost say some normal stuff with the online notebook, whether you use OneNote or Google Docs or even something like Evernote, would you suggest for them to figure out almost a template that they do it in those items and then build something like, I'm not very well versed with things like Adobe and things like that, but almost creating like a standard template within the Adobe suite so that it's just a plug and play at a certain point, but all you're using the online notebook for is to basically create the structure, and then you can go through with something like Adobe, and you don't have to do it immediately, but you can do it later on to go ahead and just to kind of simplify the process of almost exporting everything.
Yeah, so I totally agree with that. Templates are helpful with uniformity in general throughout a notebook, but it is especially helpful for an online thing. And one thing I realized I didn't exactly clarify this earlier, we prepared our online notebook about a week before each competition because we were done. Well, our notebook was, in effect, ready for that tournament. So that way we didn't have to edit everything and make all of our updates and changes to an online document all at the same time, like throughout the season. We did it right whenever our notebook was, in essence, ready. So that may simplify, especially if you're doing it all in one like Google Note or Google Doc or OneNote. It's helpful so that you do all of the changes. So that way, because that whenever it's more fluid, that makes it a little bit more difficult to get everything organized in one place with an online notebook in particular. But I definitely agree. Templates and plugging everything in, making it an exporting process is a great way of handling an online notebook.
All right, awesome. So final question, and also there was actually a fun note in the Q&A basically saying that Team 4327 actually has a tool for creating your electronic notebook that they're making available at www.scribbleitdown.com. So that's an important note for anyone that's wondering about making an electronic notebook. But my final question is this. So, and we have 3 minutes left. When it comes to judges determining about things like robot and component performance, without actually kind of being able to see it, are there going to be venues to be able to upload performance videos? And should that be part of the process even within your documentation to make sure that performance videos are put in there regularly?
Well, I don't have an exact answer for that just yet. I do think we will want to see some type of video of your robot performance, but we first have not put those details out just yet, but we will definitely get that information to you. And make sure that your coach is receiving these newsletters. Stephen Havey, the partner, sends out newsletters every few weeks And so we include updates on judging, on all kinds of things. But, you know, if you're a team member, then I would say, you know, check with your coach. If you're a coach, make sure you're receiving these newsletters. If not, then please contact Stephen Hovey to make sure he has the correct email address for you. But we will always send updates out in these newsletters, and we'll get that information to you.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. And then finally, the link that I mentioned before, it was www.scribbleitdown.com. Scribble, like normal spelling, itdown.com. And then finally, I just want to say to everyone here, as we end this session for 12:15, thank you guys so much, especially to you, Miss Georgia, and to you, Eli, for talking about FTC judging. Remember, our symposium's not over yet. We still have a lot of different presentations going on today for Sunday. Make sure that you go and check that out through the Eventbrite link that was sent in your email as the conference started. Also, remember, we will be getting this out to people within the next week. So if you have any questions about what was talked about in the presentation, just look out for an email from Georgia First in the next coming days. Finally, we just want to say thank you, and that we hope that you have a wonderful time at the rest of our symposium here with Georgia First. Thank you guys so much.
Well put. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Remember to read the game manual, part 1.
Please read the game manual. Please, please, please.